Hello, everybody. Welcome to Straight Talk. My name is Dan DeGryse. I'm one of the hosts. My co-host is Rob Fisher. And today you get the extreme privilege of hearing about the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Dugan, who I'll introduce in a second. But I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the reason I asked Mike to be here, and somebody that's a big part of all of our lives, many of you that are going to be listening, Bobby Halton. May he rest in peace. He always joined us on this hour that we had whenever we were on for Straight Talk. And while he wouldn't necessarily talk about it much elsewhere, behavioral health, mental health was an important piece to his person and the people that were close to him. And who better than to kind of take the stage here today, but my good friend and Rob's good friend, Mike Dugan, and Bobby's probably best friend. Sorry for the telephone. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Rob Fisher.
Hey, Danny, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I did ask you how you were doing a few minutes ago, and I didn't get the answer that I wanted. So you tell us how you're doing.
Well, I'll just say I've had some struggles this last few weeks with work-related stuff, but I'll say on the personal side of things, I'm home in Vegas with my wife. And for those that don't know, I live in Vegas and work up in the Seattle area. And so I'm home in Vegas with the wife. We just came back from church with one of the granddaughters was singing at church right before the show. So I get a full fill of grandkids and seeing the kids and everything. So life is good. I'll say that. And then on the note of Captain Dugan here, I first got to meet Captain Dugan through the Fools. And then I was privileged to be asked by the founders to become the training trustee education guy. And I was feeling the shoes, literally and figuratively, of Mike Dugan. And what an honor to step in and do that. And so I haven't seen Captain Dugan since probably the last time I was at FDIC, but it's great to have him on the show.
I'm not going to ask Mike right now what size shoe he wears, but Rob, I'm going to assume your shoe is a little smaller than Big Mike's. With that said,
let's just say this: I kept my shoes on when I put on his shoes.
Yeah, not his boots, just his shoes. Well, Mike, thanks for being here. For all of you that if you don't know Mike, shame on you. If you do know Mike, you know Mike. He's a larger-in-life figure, retired out of FDNY, spent 27 years in the FDNY and retired as a captain out of ladder 123. I always think it's interesting because in the Midwest, we start with a number or and they do it backwards, but or 123 truck, right? I don't know how you guys... we do truck 23 or 13, and you guys do it the other way, but that's okay. You got 11 years in retirement, and thank you for being on the show. Where do we find Mike Dugan today?
Still involved a little bit. I am trying to slow the cart down. It has been a wonderful ride, but as I was very honored to get the Lifetime Achievement Award from Bobby Halton in 2021. And as I said in that speech, I've carried the torch for a while. And it's time for some young blood to step up and start carrying the torch. And we need the younger men and women in the fire service to be willing to step up and put themselves out there. And I find from everybody out there that I see that a lot of these young guys and girls are a little afraid to do that, I think. And I think it's because we're in the age of social media. When I started, there was no social media. Nobody was nitpicking at you from behind a keyboard. And so, Right now, I'm slowing down. I'm still going, doing classes, but I stopped working in the city. I got my wife to retire. So we're going to spend a lot of time trying to spend our kids' inheritance. I don't know if we're going to have any luck, but we're going to try like hell to spend our kids' inheritance. So I'm in a very good place.
Well, that's good to hear. I know Rob's going to have a comment about spending his kid's life, his inheritance, and I think that's a good thing. Honestly, I didn't think about that until Rob mentioned it to me, and to hear you say that, I actually mentioned it to my wife. You work for 30, 40, 50 years, right? And you probably started with nothing, and you have something. Are we doing the right thing by setting our kids up with more than what we had? And I won't get into that discussion. You did take one of my things away of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Being at FDIC last year, seeing you there, I remember actually you were one of the first people that came up to me prior to my keynote, because I think you had done it. And I mean, you're what, 6'4", 6'5"?
6'5".
Yeah, and a few LBs, right? I'm not saying, but a big man. So I don't think the average person that sees you from a distance knows how kind-hearted you are, and how really, truly thoughtful you are. When you talked up there about your Lifetime Achievement Award, you talked about the greatest achievement you've ever had, really, is your family and your kids, which I don't want to make you emotional now, but you got emotional up there, which I think everybody got emotional and probably got a little surprised by it too. But really, kind of like the men and women in the fire service and our families, those are the biggest assets we have. But a lot of times we don't always treat them as such. Not to say you, but in general.
No, I agree wholeheartedly.
So what I wanted to ask you, and I know that, Rob, I won't forget about the, spending your inheritance or your kid's inheritance. I know some things that motivate you, but what is the public, what does the average person that hears Mike Dugan's name not know that motivates him?
Again, my family, of course, and it's my wife and kids. But what you guys didn't see is I'm one of 6. I've got 5 brothers and sisters, and we're all, well, one of us is still in their 50s, but the rest of us are in our 60s, and one of us is getting in real close to their 70s, and we still get together, and we still like each other. And it's amazing. And we make time for each other. And we have a family tradition that I think is one of the most awesome things in the world. And if one of my brothers and sisters turns 60, the other 5 have to show up to you for a meal. And then if one of us turns 70, you can pick anywhere you want to go. And the other 5, if it's in the continental United States, the other 5 have to show up. If it's outside of the continental United States, it's up to them if they want to show up. But you can pick anywhere you want to go. Your lifetime, this is my dream trip. This is where I want to go. Okay, I'm going there for my 70th birthday. Who wants to come? Okay, and I got family who's like, a lot of times they're like, I'm in. So in October, we are getting together. In August, my oldest sister turns 70. And the following January, my youngest brother turns 60. They combined theirs, and we're renting a massive log home in the North Georgia mountains for 5 nights, and the 6 of us will be together. And just so family motivates me. Right now, my wife and traveling and going around and seeing the world with my wife. We have got a couple of trips planned. We are going down to the Bahamas for our 37th wedding anniversary. And can't wait to do that with her. And, I upgraded to everything we could for her. I mean, 37 years of putting up with my crap, and really, in September it will be 43 we've been together. So, I mean, she deserves everything I can give her. So those are the things that motivate me. It also motivates me to see people doing good in the world. I mean, I think the world is right now politics and all that other stuff. I'm not going to get into any of that, but I think the world is screwed up. I have things that I love to do that motivate me. Every year, my wife and I adopt a military family for Christmas. And because of the pandemic, it's been gift cards for the last couple of years. But before the pandemic, my favorite thing was going and we get it, you got a 10-year-old girl who likes pink and we go shopping. And I had more fun doing that than anything else. Get that, that's enough. No. Get that. Throw it in there. So we adopt that. And we also adopt my youngest daughter is a school social worker, and she works at school, and we adopt a family in the school, and just to contribute to the local community. So I like being able to give back because I've been blessed. I am in a place where, I mean, I'm just doing very well and I'm happy. And so it gives me pleasure to give back. And the other thing that I do for me all the time is I read. I have books all over the place. My friend Bobby Halton and I used to read books together, and I love that. I'm going to miss him, but he really did get me. The last thing he got me into was a series called Threads of the West. And I read the first book and I went, wow, this is great. I read the second book, and then I look at the back of the book. Son of a bitch, if the guy isn't planning 31 books, okay? 31 books.
Wow.
So that's some series Bobby hooked me up on. But, okay, I love reading, so it's good. I'm reading a book now. I just finished a great book called Fate is the Hunter about pilots. And this guy started flying before World War II, commercial airlines, and talks about the things that went wrong with the pilots. And the first 4 pages of the book are people that he flew with who died in plane crashes. So Fate's the Hunter. And for us in the fire service, that book so equates to the fire service that you can do everything right and still get killed on this job. So, look at the poor kid who just got killed in West Texas in that accident where the tractor trailer hit the cars and the apparatus killed him. He survived the 2013 explosion in the fertilizer plant. And this is how he ends up going out. I mean, fate is the hunter. So I like reading. I like being involved and seeing things that are going on. And I also I like right now, I'm going back and reading a lot of the stuff that I had to read as a kid that I really didn't like. I just read Cannery Row again. I read To Kill a Mockingbird, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Last of the Mohicans. Just to go back and read them because I really didn't read them with the mind I have now. So that's the kind of thing that I do. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy my life.
Mike, you said you guys are traveling a lot, and you being Irish, have you gone back to Ireland?
We have gone back to Ireland. I want to go back again. We went to Portugal, which I loved. I would go back to Portugal in a heartbeat. We want to do Italy and Greece. And we were looking at a cruise, but it goes up into the Black Sea. And right now we're not going anywhere near the Black Sea. But yeah, we're looking at Ireland. I want to go back. But very honestly, I say this all the time. My wife doesn't like how I drive, and a lot of married men understand that. But I'm not driving on the wrong side of the road and having her yell at me too. So when we go to Ireland, I get a driver, somebody to take us around and drive us around. And we've done Ireland and gone across the country on a train and had a lot of fun doing it. And I'm looking forward to going back and doing it again. Yes.
Yeah, obviously those that know me, my wife and I, we do a lot of traveling. We just got back from Italy last month, and but Portugal is on our list. That's one of the places we're looking for. I just want to cover some of the comments that were coming in. Anthony Avillo, he wanted to say, hi, boys. Glad to see you, Mike. And Kenny Church, keep up the good work, Big Mike. We have learned a lot from you. Enjoy your retirement, pal. So we talked about, Danny brought up, you had 27 years with the FDNY, probably the best fire department in the world, at least one of the best. Do you have any regrets of all those years of service? Anything that you hang on to?
Yeah. I think we all have regrets. And if you don't, I think you're a narcissist. But sometimes some of the way I treated people, maybe I didn't find out what was going on. Maybe I jumped. I went from being in that thinking mind to being in that emotional mind. And I let my emotions take over. And I didn't think it through. And a couple of times I screwed up relationships. And I screwed up, I might have screwed up some people along the way. And those bother me. That I wasn't adult enough, man enough to realize that and back off that. And sometimes it happens, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. So I really sometimes wish whenever I was going to do something that was not spur of the moment, I took time to step back and look at the total picture. I truly wish I did, because I probably hurt some people and damaged them and maybe my reputation. And I don't know that. But, I always tried to be right, but I wasn't always right. And I wasn't always smart about the things I did.
I know I've known you for about 8 years now, Mike. And I've always known you to be one that manages your emotion. It's interesting that you say something like the rational mind and the emotional mind. That's something we try to teach people in the world of recovery, but we don't really, we never talk about that in the fire service from a leadership standpoint or from a management standpoint, from what we're exposed to. I could probably say, in that, again, knowing you for a long, long time, that I don't think your intent was to harm anybody or to be aggressive, but we were never taught some of the things we've learned in the last 10 years of our life that we should have known. But I certainly have seen you model that. We asked, I think for the audience needs to know, is that we don't just ask Mike random questions. We give Mike, in any of our guests, an understanding of where we're going to go, because we certainly want this to be productive. The question will be is how honest people will be. And knowing you, Mike, you're 100% honest, and we're all very critical of ourselves. So I appreciate what you just offered, because that's not, from a leadership standpoint, most of the leaders that I hear from are always, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to be right all the time, you got to this. And I learned in my own career as a battalion chief, man, if I don't surround myself with the right people, I'm going to go down pretty fast, especially in the high-rise district of Chicago, trying to manage 150 people in an incident. Whether it be 5 people or 150, you have to have a skill set, and we have to do better. And I think you're doing that, and showing in your behavior. And I think you probably do it probably more often than you probably care to think from a mentorship standpoint, right? Because I think you and Bobby mentored each other.
Oh,
and
absolutely. Go ahead. You will finish. Go ahead, Bobby.
And again, is that you talk to so many different people, and you probably don't really realize then or now the impact that you have on people. I would imagine.
I appreciate that. But again, I have taken the time to study this. One of the books that I love, and I'm just looking up on my desk, is the audio version, is Crucial Conversations. Okay. And I loved that book, but early on in my life, I tended to go, and I mean, especially as a young fireman, you go from, thinking to doing. And a lot of times, especially the male brain, I think, can do one or the other, that fight or flight, that I can be emotional or I can protect myself, but I can't think and fight at the same time. It becomes instinctive. So learning how to control those things and learning how to step back for a second and take a look at things and say, wait a second, why is this person acting like this? Did I upset them? Did I insult them? Did I do something wrong? Or did they don't feel safe in our conversation? And I think that's all part of learning. And, I joke it's growing up, and I'm growing older. I still haven't grown up all the way because I'm still learning about some of these things that I wish I had learned when I was, 20, but I'm still learning it. I'm still learning about some of the things that are out there. And I think it's very important that we keep broadening our horizons and learning about these things.
Yeah, Mike, I just had an interview for deputy chief position in my department. They brought this exact question up, any regrets? And like you, I mean, how I treated people, how I treated other company officers, my relationships were definitely things that I would love to go back and redo. And I think for any of the young listeners that are tuning in today or are going to be listening to this later, is like, and this lesson I try to share when I'm teaching at our ODA for our company officers is that slow down, take information in, try not to be so reactionary, and foster good relationships, because ultimately in the end you're going to need those. You're going to need those relationships, and I think it's a maturity thing. And I don't know if it was the way that we were raised. You're older than Danny and I are, but I was raised in the 70s, and I don't know if it was just how we were raised in the 70s, being the generation that I was in, and that we just missed this opportunity. But it is key relationship wise. So
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, Mike, it was good to hear about how retirement has been, because there's been a lot of people that have asked me, and I'll be honest, is I haven't had a bad day in retirement. I never had a bad day, or I had some tough days, but never a bad day in the fire service. And kind of same with retirement, but I always looked at the positive thing. You hear of so many people that didn't want to retire or had to retire. I think you shared that one of the reasons you had to retire was because your knee, and a lot of times that can be a difficult transition when it's not wholly your choice. So to hear that you're in such a good place is absolutely wonderful. Now, before I get to your, we talked about any regrets, which I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you your best memory, but before I get there, I'm going to ask you kind of like a curveball question, and you kind of brought it up, is about Bobby. You guys had, from my understanding and talking with you, a true brother relationship. What do you have to say about Bobby, and or how you feel with the loss of him? And I think all our opinions too soon.
Well, I think our loss is a collective loss for the fire service. I believe in God, like Bobby did. And I honestly believe that my friend is in a better place, pain-free, and not hurting anymore. And I believe that he is up there with the other people that have gone before us. He's sitting at a table with Brunacini, Brennan, and Leo Stapleton, and they are cracking jokes, drinking coffee, and talking politics and fire service and talking trash to each other. Okay, which is not a problem. I mean, I would give my left arm to hear Halton say one more time, Dugan, you're an asshole. Okay, but it ain't gonna happen. But he left the world a better place for him being here. And he left the American Fire Service a much better place for him being here. And I think that's all any of us can ask. I mean, he had 3 beautiful sons, a lovely wife who loved him. I know his sister, Elizabeth, Beth, and his brother, Ray, live around the corner from me, as does his sister, Mary. And, you know, I see them occasionally, but he left us so much better for his. I mean, when I see firemen that I know telling me what their daily stoic quote was for the day, if that doesn't say Halton to you all the time, you know, Bobby Seneca the Younger, Marcus Aurelius, and all these people that he loved, and their quotes and all of that stuff. And I think it's a loss for us, but we so benefited from him being here that it's gonna outweigh the loss.
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that, Mike. I don't know if you have any comment, Rob.
No, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so we'll switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Give us your best memory, 27 years in the fire service.
We used to do a thing in my company, and other companies in the city of New York did it. I was the captain, and one of my guys was getting promoted, and he was working his last couple of night tours. And I would ride backwards and take the irons and let him ride the front seat. And he would be on the radio as the captain of Ladder 123. When they called on the radio, he'd be talking to his men, and I would be teaching him a little bit about doing his job. And I loved doing that. And I remember one time one of the guys was getting promoted, and we had a kick-ass job. One of the guys looked at me and said, "Where is the hydro ram? The forcible door tool, the hydro ram?" I said, "If I need the hydro ram, I'm going to put in my retirement papers right now. Okay, I'm getting my fat ass through that door, come hook or crook with a set of irons in my ass. But we are getting through that door." And I loved that. That was my memory as a captain, as a fireman, was just the camaraderie, the brotherhood. I was talking about it the other day. I worked 4th of July in, I think it was 86, could have been 87, but it was 4th of July. I was ordered in on overtime as the junior man, but it was the Statue of Liberty Centennial. And after the after the tour, they didn't need me for the night tour. And we went down to the Statue of Liberty Centennial. And there were some seats, bleachers, down by the Statue of Liberty on the park down there. And we were sitting right next to it. Now, these people paid $1,000 for these seats because we had badges. We got right next to them. And we're sitting there with 6-packs and drinking our beer and all that. And we had a great time. I mean, the brotherhood, the camaraderie of being a fireman was great. The idea that you can mold individuals for the organization as a captain or a lieutenant is also just one of the best things that you can do as an officer. You can mold the future of the organization by the time you take with the young men and women working for you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
You mentioned impact with Bobby, and I mean, I got to say, you have a huge impact on the American Fire Service as well. And I know you're a humble guy, but you're a Bennett Medal honoree, you're an Archer Medal honoree, and I think of, and I have this photo in my office, in our battalion office, but I think of the photo of you connecting the American flag to the street lamp. So not to be confused by the iconic photo that goes out that a lot of people see of the three firefighters where it looks like, the Iwo Jima, but I know this photo is out there and there's a lot of people that have it. But and if you don't mind just talking a little bit, I mean, this could be emotional a little bit, but what were your thoughts after 9/11, your experience of 9/11 that you're willing to share with us?
Well, I mean, on 9/11, that day, we put that flag up. A lot of people don't know one of the guys who was holding the ladder was Chris Engeldrum, who was killed in Iraq by an IED with the Fighting 69th, the New York, the Irish Brigade, and our VFW post is named after Chris Engeldrum. And since Chris Engeldrum, we have lost 3 more members of the FDNY in service. They were KIA, killed in action, in defending our nation. So I think for me, and I am the son of a father, okay, I am the son of a man who flew 65 missions over hostile territory in a bomber. And I think that we have lost the respect of this flag that's right behind me. And I always keep the flag behind me because of my love for this country, what it has done for me, what it has done for my family. I think that we have to understand that there are young men and women out there putting their lives at risk for us. So, I mean, that picture, I mean, Chris Engeldrum was there. He's the one who went and paid the ultimate price for our freedom. Now, there are also always perspectives on everything you do. That picture made the news, and it's a lot of places. And the next day it was on in the Daily News. The photographer was Andrew Savulich. And then the following week, it was on U.S. News and World Report. It was on WNYF. It was on Reader's Digest. And I got a call from my old man. And there's always a perspective, paradigm. And the first thing he said to me is, "Hey, asshole, the flag's backwards." And I said, "But Pop, it's not." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "The flag is pointing towards north, as close as we could get it to north." And he goes, "Oh," and I said, "The photographer came around the other way to get the picture." And he said, "Well, then the photographer's an asshole." And I said, "Well, I'll accept that. I'll accept that." Okay. But there's always a perspective on what you do. Okay. Now, that's the photo. That's a moment in time. And I tell this to everybody who asks about it. I asked the photographer if he knew what time that picture was taken, because I have no concept of time that day. No concept of time. And he said no. The only thing he told me is if you look closely at the picture, you can see 7 is still standing in the background. 7 World Trade Center is still standing in the background. So 7 was still standing. So it has to be before like 11:30 or 12 when that building finally came down. But besides that, I don't know. My post 9/11 experience is different because I was down there on 9/11 and finally got self-service back and let my wife know what was going on. And, probably 4:30 in the afternoon, she was in college at the time. The girls were in school. And I told her I was going down there. I called her when they happened in the morning at 9 something. I was at the fire academy. We're going down on a bus, and she had no idea if I was alive or dead. And I finally got through on the phone about I got cell service back about 4:00, 4:30 in the afternoon. And I called home, and my neighbor across the street answers the phone, Al Quinn. And I'm like, hey, Al, it's Mike. He goes, hey, Mike, how are you? I said, I'm okay. I'm okay. And he goes, I go, just let Miss you know. He goes, fuck no. Excuse me, but this was the real deal. He goes, you're not hanging up this phone. She's outside with the girls are riding their bicycle. You're not hanging up this phone until I get her on this phone. Until she talks to you, you are not hanging up. And he goes running out. He's waving to my wife. She comes in, we talk. And then probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, get a phone call. It might have even been a little earlier. It might have been like 9:30. Get a phone call. Hey, where are you? I said, I'm down at ground zero. Okay, well, go home and get some sleep. You got to work for 24 hours tomorrow. You're on duty. And like, oh, shoot. So I ended up going to 231, 120, Watkins Street, great firehouse, and manned a company from New Jersey that were in an area that was full of projects, and they had never hooked up to a standpipe before. So you see the whole world. And then afterwards, I was 24 on, 24 off for a while. And then we went to an ABC, 24 on, 48 off. But one day I had 4 funerals of people I worked with the same day. And I ended up needing help. I ended up needing therapy. In late November, early December, my daughter was 6 at the time, gonna be 7, asked me why I was always angry, why I was always mad. And I was like, what? And my wife told me, the kid's kind of scared of you. You fly off the handle. So I had to go get help. So my post 9/11 experience is that I don't care how big, how tough, how resilient you are. At some point, every one of us is going to need somebody to talk to. Find that person. Okay? Because at the time, I was not taking care of myself. I was not doing the right thing. I was going up and I was getting a beer, but because I didn't want to get up that many times, I'd get 2 beers and walk back with 2 silver bullets, 2 Coors Lights, sit down, drink them both. 10 minutes later, get up and get 2 more. And again, what we don't realize as firefighters and fire officers is when we come home in that firehouse brain, in that firehouse stress and everything else, unless we take time to compartmentalize it, put it away, unless we take the time, whether it's on your ride home or whatever else, we take that to our families, and our wives and kids get that. And it's not always good. And that's why a lot of guys end up with problems in their lives. And, finding someone to communicate with, to talk to be able to process it is very, very important.
Mike, you bring up really why Bobby wanted us to do this show. I appreciate the fact that you went there and offered from your own experience, because I actually I'd rather tell people about my imperfections than my perfections these days from a leadership standpoint. And I probably have way more holes in me than solid pieces. You bring up a thing that I had to learn through my own therapy, is that I call it transition time. I didn't do well transitioning. And I kind of shared with you earlier that from a writing standpoint, and when you write, you have to, introduction, body, conclusion, and then you have to have transitions in between. I sucked at those too. But the one that was more important was my ability to go from work to home. And then we talked also about working and retirement, which again, nobody's perfect. We're all very fallible. And I had to learn that exact thing, is that when I'm coming home, it's not necessarily to ride home in Chicago or New York or where, Boston or wherever tough area that you have to traverse. But these days, I'll sit in my driveway for 3 to 5 minutes. I'll take the long way into the house for a couple of minutes. And even when I walk in the front door, I'll say, good morning or good afternoon or something. But we've had a conversation that I probably will need an additional 10, 15, 20 minutes to really, as we know from the fire service, is decon, mentally and physically. Like my wife always tells me, I'm going to make a joke about this because take my clothes off. Well, from the fire service, I wish it was always for the other reason, but it's like, don't bring that stuff in the house, right? Take your shoes off. I'm like, that's my friggin' house. I could walk around the house with muddy feet. And she's like, no, you can't. My wife says, hi, by the way, Mike, all 5'3" and 102 pounds of her, but she's 100% German. And what we never think about from our brains, I don't think anybody did, all of us included, but no one taught us that process. So you bringing that up and offering that, it's so important to be able to have that transition. Number one thing in regards to hazmat, right? Don't start hazmat unless you have decon set up. And why is that? Because if something goes to hell or you get contaminated, we need to get that stuff off you. But we don't look at it from and I'm using mental health, it should be a positive thing. The good news is that you, Rob, Fools, Bobby, fire engineering, me to a part, we're talking about this. And what I also want to say is that, suicide, substance abuse, relationships, there are some unfortunate things that happen to people throughout our career. Line of duty does. But what I would like to also say, and I want you both to chime in on this, the greater majority of us are pretty freaking cool, right? I mean, people like us. And if we take care of ourselves and be intentional like you have been, we can stay pretty good and pretty cool and people will want to be around us. Like my wife loves me, but she didn't always like me. She likes me now, and I'm more proud of that because I have to every single day do something to make that happen. Because all it does is take a couple of bad minutes with Dan to make her not like me. But for the most part, a lot of us are pretty damn specialized, talented, skilled, and are going to have successful careers and retirements. That's the good thing about the American Fire Service.
That's the great thing. You're 100% right. And it's the great thing. But again, we have to allow ourselves to get to retirement. We have to allow ourselves to admit that we're human. And sometimes we can't handle it all by ourselves. We're firefighters. We want to fix everything. And sometimes we can't fix everything. And we've all been married for a while to our lives. Okay. Sometimes my wife doesn't want me to say a word. Just listen. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to make it better. Don't try to paint it. Don't try to put it away. Listen to me. Okay. And again, do these things. It's so important for the young guys, just time for your wife, time to do things. Take the kids on a special daddy-son, daddy-daughter date, or take them camping with the father and kids camping trip in a firehouse. Let the moms all get together and have a party. Well, how great is that?
No, we can't forget about the fact that many of the firefighters also are females too, and then a lot of the husbands are at-home moms. So the other side of that, right, too?
Absolutely. And again, whatever it is, you just have to be willing to take the time with that significant other, the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Well, try to spend some time with them, right, and spend some quality time with them.
I think I think, Danny and I have talked about this, about his, I don't want to say previous life, but earlier life and challenges family wise. And I had the same thing. And it's those of us that are truly engaged in a lot of the things that we do. Danny being on the fire department and with Rosecrans and everything that goes on in his background life. And I'm with the Fools and teaching, and you just get really, really busy, and it's almost like you got to screw some shit up to get to the point where you understand what you need to do right, and I think as I'm later into my career now and almost close to retirement, I think I'm a better husband and a better father now than I was 15, 20 years ago. And some of it is you gotta screw it up. And I mean, if there's, to your point, Mike, if there's something we could tell the younger firefighters is to see this, learn these lessons, and try to avoid repeating what we've already done. And we're telling you, just avoid it. Avoid it.
Yeah. Why? And very honestly, how many of the guys that we know have screwed that up on their first marriage and destroyed their first marriage because of that? And guys and girls, and it's the same thing. There's got to be, and again, there's got to be like a work-life balance if you want to do this and be in a stable relationship. And I saw something recently with some guy talking about people with, do you think Bill Gates had a work-life balance? Probably not. Do you think Elon Musk has a work-life balance? Probably not. Do you think Steve Jobs, when he was alive, had a work-life balance? Probably not. Now, they're very, very successful people. But if you want to do this and do this with a family and do this if you want to be by yourself and jump into this and be the number one student, you want to be volunteering for everything. I mean, the New York City Fire Department, you can go to a party at night if you wanted to. There were things going on all over. You can join all the different societies. You can join the the Emerald Society, the Steuben Society. You can go on a boat ride. You can go on, there's the boxing tournament. There's this. You can go to this thing. There's the hockey game. There's a baseball game. There's a lacrosse game. You can do all of that stuff and be to a party every day. But what's going to be at home when you get at home? Nothing. So it depends on what you want, and you have to answer those questions to yourself.
So, Mike, I know we got about 10 or so minutes left, unless Peter knocks us off.
Early?
Yeah, I don't think Peter will do that.
Okay.
So, long career, elder statesman here, a lot of personal life, a lot of professional experience. You've probably been on, and I'm going to 10, 20,000 runs in your career, both. I don't know if you ever did any ride-alongs with other people, or you did stuff, and I know some people do that. Some people volunteer, but in New York, I can imagine that you had a significant amount of calls, and let's just, thousands of runs. I know for me, I can't put a number on it. In my personal and professional life, Rob and I talk about this when we do get together, when he's not in Italy drinking wine in a vineyard, or in Vegas laying in his pool because he won't talk to me or anybody else except his bride during that time. That was a shot, Rob.
I got it.
I could recall, even by asking this question, a couple of incidences, both personally and professionally, that I wish I had a do-over. I don't think anybody can go through life without some sort of regret. What I do offer to people is don't spend a ton of time there. Those are memories, just like some of the good memories you offered. One of the toughest things to overcome from a behavioral health standpoint, a mental health standpoint, is survivor's guilt. feeling guilty or shame about something that we didn't do. But in our career, it's not moving a decimal point over or loading a package the wrong way. Sometimes it comes in life or death. Is there anything that you can offer that if you can do it again, you'd like a do-over on?
There were a couple of things in my professional life. There were a couple of things I wish I had done better, been more akin to. I wish I had, my biggest regret as a firefighter is, as a young firefighter, not starting a journal. I wish I had started a journal and written down, and it's not, I think the brotherhood and sisterhood pictures are the greatest thing out there. I have a bunch of them throughout my house that I have for me. I don't think we should be high-fiving each other on the front lawn of someone's burnt out house, but taking a picture in front of the apparatus after the fire and remembering those people that you were with at that point in your life. I wish I had done a little bit more of that, recorded the runs. My first run as a lieutenant, my first run as a captain, my first fire as a lieutenant, my first fire as a captain. I wish I had recorded those things better, and the people I worked with and who was there. That was a lot in my personal life, and it kind of goes into professional also. I graduated college with an associate's degree in 1976. I wish I had gone back to school. I wish I had gotten a college degree, a bachelor's, and I wish I had gone back to school. And then when the time came for me to think about it, I had two kids that were going to college, and I had two kids in college at the same time, and one in a master's program and one in a regular program, and I couldn't afford it. So I wish I would have gotten my degree. That haunts me. I love education. I love reading. So I wish I would have done that. Okay. But these are things that, there are a lot of things that I have done in my life. And, before I did the fire department, I was working as a machinery mover, a millwright and a rigger, and rigging things. And I thought I was going to be doing that for the rest of my life. And then the economy kind of collapsed in 79, 80 in New York City. And I needed benefits. I needed health insurance. And that's when I went on the NYPD and then took the FDNY from there. But I mean, it was all, I always say, should I have done it better earlier? Should I have tried earlier? But then the path I took would have been a different path. So I wouldn't have gotten where I was now on that different path. So, I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, but the hindsight will only teach you what you want to let it teach you, what you want to, what you wish you did different and everything else. So I don't really let those things haunt me as much as some people do, because I think that, it's what happened. When I had a chance to take a chief's test, before you needed college to be a battalion chief in the city of New York, I stopped studying because my wife's mom was sick and was dying. And I couldn't leave my kids with a babysitter while my wife was at the hospital to go study with a group of guys to study for battalion chief. I just couldn't do that to my wife. It wasn't fair. So I made a decision to quit. And I lived with it the rest of my life. And that's fine. And very honestly, I think about it now and I say, well, what ifs? If I had decided to continue paying the babysitter and going and studying and I became a chief, on 9/11, I might have been one of those chiefs in Lower Manhattan. So you never know. So who knows what would happen? So I just, I don't let the past is the past, and I don't let the past haunt me, because I did what I thought was right at the time. It's like being a fireman. If you decide which way you're going to take the ladder, what way you're going to get into the building, you go that way. If you make a mistake, you learn from it and move on, and don't make the same mistake the second time.
Thanks for that, Mike. That's great advice. Although the second time you do it, if you were the captain, the guy or girl would have got a boot in the ass, right?
Second time, yes. Yep. You do the same thing twice. First time, okay, not a problem. Second time, yeah.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned how not taking the test and making these decisions. And earlier in the conversation, we're talking a lot about family. And so I'm not surprised. This is the first time I heard that you chose not to take the Chiefs test because of something like that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm not surprised by that, knowing you and that it is something that is important to you. And I would just say that be it that you're religious or not, I think things happen for a reason, or God is steering our lives. And so this journey, your journey, is made up of all of these things. The decision not to do the BC's test, and if you would have done the BC's test, as you said, you may have been a battalion chief down in Lower Manhattan. Your life, your personal life, may have changed, and so I think it's important we do things the way that we want to do things because they happen for a reason. But we're kind of winding down here, but what do you do in your day-to-day to manage your wellness? I know you gave up drinking a while ago, and I don't know if that's part of your mental health wellness or anything.
I just I didn't go into the program, and I want to make this clear. I will still have a drink now. I got to be quiet, but because we're going down to to Nassau for our 37th wedding anniversary, and I booked a sunset dinner on the beach for two, for my wife and I, but she doesn't know about it. And we're going to be at the sunset on the table right at the edge of the water with our own private waiter and the whole thing. And it comes with a bottle of wine. I'll have a drink of wine with her to celebrate that. I just don't drink like I used to. Okay. I didn't go into AA. I have a lot of family members in AA, and I'm all for it if it's becoming a problem. I just didn't like the idea that I was becoming known as someone who drank a lot. And I didn't like going to places where people said, "Oh, I heard you like to drink a lot, and we're going to get you hammered." And I don't like that. I didn't think that was responsible. And I kind of equated to one of the guys I love is Shaquille O'Neal. And I asked Shaquille O'Neal, "You don't drink?" And he goes, No. I don't drink in public. I don't want anybody to see me drinking because I don't want to hurt the brand. And I'm like, okay, that's I don't drink when I'm going out to firefighting conventions and everything else because I don't want to get a reputation as one of those guys who goes out there and is out sitting in the bar after the class getting hammered. And I did that for a while. So my personal wellness, my wife and I are trying to go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. She's having some knee problems, so we're working on that. But I also spend a little time each day reading, and I give myself permission every day if I feel like it to take a nap. And all of those things are part of your wellness, how you feel. I try to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Sometimes I'm reading and I look up and I'm like, holy shit, it's midnight already? What are you doing here? Go to bed. And I'm like, yeah, but this is so good. All right, another half hour. What's the end of the chapter? Whatever. But I try to spend some time on myself. I try to eat healthier than I have. A lot of times the firehouse is not a good place for healthy eating. You have to learn around that. I mean, ice cream is one of my favorite things in the world, so it's not in my house. And you just try to, work out, spend some time thinking about yourself, whether you meditate, whether you pray, whatever you do, and just take some time for yourself so that you feel good about yourself.
That's wonderful. What I do hear you say is you're intentional about it. I think we all know at our ages, right, Rob, that when we were kids, and I mean, throw anything at us, and we just did whatever. We ate whatever. We ate as little or as much, and we kind of landed where we did. And you look at the Serenity Prayer, or if you're familiar with the Serenity Prayer, the wisdom to know the difference comes at the end. If it only came earlier in our lives.
How many scars I would have avoided.
I mean, that applies to all of us, but we always say that for firefighters, we'll figure out what we want to do in life, or when we'll grow up once we retire. After the fun and games. I want to be clear, and I think Rob is, and Mike, you said it as well, is that, and Bobby knew this. The American Fire Service is the best job in the world. Some of us lose sight of it for different reasons. And I just did a couple presentations, and I said, I'm not here to tell you you're doing anything wrong, because I know how it's received. Sometimes when people told me I was doing things wrong, I told them, the old adage, good for you, what that stands for. Nobody wants to be told what to do, but we have to be intentional. And we really weren't, and nobody kind of told us that early in our career to, eat better and take a minute to yourself and tell your spouse and your kids that you loved them. You did it, and you showed in a certain way. We thought, at least I did, thought I did, by putting a roof over their head, make food, all that stuff that our parents taught us. But really what they want is connection. And that's the same that really anybody wants. But for the greater majority of the fire service, man, is it wonderful. And we get to do wonderful things to help and save people. The unfortunate thing is, from overexposure, just like the wind, the rain, the cold, and the heat, you get an effect, right? I personally, I know Rob does, because we talked about it, is when we think about who we're going to have on as a guest, we really appreciate everybody, and you especially here currently, to talk about this stuff, offer your personal insight, to talk about Bobby. Last thing I want to ask you before we sign off is, I've had a couple of conversations with Bobby since he's passed, and I think my thoughts with Bobby is that many people get to meet him. Some people know him, right? And then there's few like yourself that really were brothers and true companions. While I've had many conversations with him, I remember the kindest thing he ever said to me when I knew that we were friends was that same word that you mentioned. He actually said, Dan, I hate you, because that kind of told you that we were being personal, not the superficial stuff that most people are like. And that's what this conversation is about. So thanks for going there. What have you said to Bobby since he has passed?
Oh, I've talked to him a lot, because we used to text back and forth. We talked at least once a week, but most times twice a week, about the different things going on in our country, and about we talked about politics, we talked about religion, we talked about reading, and we talked about the American Fire Service and some of the stuff going on. And I've talked to him about wishing I could have his counsel on some of the things I'm seeing going on, and how I'm so glad that he was here and that we had our time, but I still wish he was here every day. And I just, I miss my friend. So I miss my sounding board. I miss my, it's almost like a reflection, but it's a reflection that will be honest with you. Okay. The easiest person for me to lie to is me. Okay. Halton and I never lied to each other. And so having that sounding board is so important, that person. And there are other people in my life like that. I mean, I still talk to David Rhodes all the time. I talk to Mike Galliano all the time. But having that person on the other side of that wall who will tell you the truth is so vitally important to each and every one of us. If you don't have that, find that person.
Thanks, Mike. Robbie, you want to sign us out?
Yeah. Well, Mike, it's been, you're a great brother. I love you, man. And
Thank you, bro.
Dude, I really do appreciate all these years, our relationship. And I appreciate you sharing some of the, most personal things in your life. Your impact Bobby's had on you, your relationship with Bobby and such, and everything you've given back to the American Fire Service. What's the easy ways to get a hold of you for those that that are under a rock that don't know who Mike Dugan is?
You can find me on Facebook at Captain Dugan. You can find my website is captaindugan.com. You can find me real simple. My email, I'm old, yes, is duganfire, DUGANFIRE at AOL. Okay, so yes, I am old. Okay. So I don't like change either.
There's not too many people that have AOL anymore.
No, me,
Yeah,
Galliano.
you're gonna be at FDIC.
Yes. Yep. I'll see you all there.
All right, brother. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in with us. I don't know the exact date, but we're a few weeks out, if not a month or so out. Oh, we're going to be at FDIC doing a live show there as well. Danny and I are. And I think Frank Lito is going to be with us, if I remember correctly, Danny.
Yep.
And but we love the opportunity to be able to have this platform here. Thank you, Clarion Fire Engineering, and the late great Bobby Halton. He's the one that pulled us in on this. And so, everybody, we thank you, and be smart out there. And we'll see you at FDIC.